Hello, folks. Happy Monday. Welcome to another episode, another edition of the Everything Medicare Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Brindle, where every single week, me and my company, Christian Brindle Insurance Services, bring you a podcast where we talk about and discuss your Medicare, your Medicaid, your Social Security, and everything that has to do with that golden age called retirement. Today, I wanted to talk about something that is a pretty simple topic, and I can't believe I haven't done an episode about it sooner. There's so much for me to talk about week after week after week, and it just feels like, even though we try to do 2 podcasts a week now and we're trying to, develop more content for you, I still feel like there's a lot of topics that we don't talk about as much as I'd like, or we just haven't gotten to, and it's just, Medicare is such a unique, diverse thing. And there's so much that goes into it when you really dig deep that I don't know if we'll ever run out of topics, to be completely honest with you. Today I'm doing the podcast from the road. I am basically on call to take my wife, Stormy, to the hospital at any given time because she's pregnant and she could give birth any day now. Today I wanted to talk about how to apply for Medicare given your certain situation. And you might be thinking, well, isn't it the same for everybody as far as how you apply? The answer is very simply put, no. Social Security is so complicated and they make this so difficult. And to be honest with you, sometimes the rules can differ depending on whose desk it lands on. Seriously. You will not get the same answer from 2 different people that work at Social Security, and both of them will be right because that's how they would process it. My opinion on Social Security, folks, is it's probably one of the most unorganized organizations we have. It's completely ran by the government. It's just chaotic. And if you don't know what you're doing, this whole thing can turn into a mess, in my personal opinion. Point blank. A good place for us to start is when you're turning 65. Okay, so you're turning 65. Let's say, throw out an example there. Let's say your birthday is July 6th, for example. Okay, so you have a birthday on July 6th. Your Medicare will start July 1, the first of your birth month. Medicare always starts on the first of your birth month. It can't start randomly in different times of the month. So 90 days before July 1st, so that would be, the first of this month, if my math is correct, April 1st, you're able to apply for Medicare. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to do that, and I wanted to talk about the turning 65 people first, because that's the most common one you're going to run into. If you are drawing off your Social Security benefits currently, okay, if you're drawing off your Social Security benefits, you will automatically be placed on Medicare. Automatically. Medicare Part A, Medicare Part B. The Medicare Part B premium of $135.50 will automatically be taken out of your Social Security check every month. And you won't even see it. You'll just notice the amount will be less. It doesn't even show up on a statement. So that's pretty easy. For those people, they don't really have to do anything. It's done for them. Medicare, for people that aren't drawing off Social Security, there's a couple different ways to do this. The first way is you can make an appointment and go into the Social Security office in your jurisdiction. It's probably the most complex way, in my opinion. The second way you can do it is you can go on Social Security's website, which is ssa.gov. Again, that's ssa.gov, and you can apply there if you can navigate through your website. Nowadays, they make you create an account, a Social Security account, if you haven't already done that, and it's kind of more hoops to jump through than you might imagine. You might need to answer security questions to verify your identity, like, what credit card did you open in the 80s, or something like that, and give you multiple choice. And for some people, that's a lot of information to retain. If you miss anything, they lock you out for, I think, 24 to 48 hours. But even still, I'd say that's the easiest way for someone that's turning 65. You just do the whole thing online. They're supposed to send you information in the mail or someone's even supposed to contact you if they need any more information, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time they just sit there, wait for you to call. So if you don't hear anything within 3 or 4 weeks of you doing it, it's probably best to follow up with them, because if in a lot of situations, if you don't call them, they won't do anything about it, and then July 1st will show up, if your birthday's in July, hypothetically speaking, and you won't have Medicare. And as far as how long this takes to process, again, it depends on whose desk it falls on. Could be 2 weeks, could be a week, could be a month, could be a month and a half. You never know. You just don't ever know. Stay with me into segment 2, and I will break down the other situations where someone needs to get on Medicare, let's say after 65 or coming off of a work insurance or retiring later. Stay tuned. Welcome back, folks, to segment 2 of this week's Everything Medicare Podcast. Okay, so we're talking about getting onto Medicare, applying for Medicare in certain situations. We went over turning 65. That's simple. The easiest method is to get on when you're turning 65. Now, let's say there's a way that you can postpone your Medicare without being penalized. So let's talk about that. Let's use myself as an example. Let's say I'm turning 65 in July, but I'm still working and I have a good plan that costs me $50 a month in premium from my employer, and I don't want to get rid of it. Well, as long as I'm working for that employer, as long as it's an employer plan, meaning through a current employer, I'm able to postpone taking Medicare at age 65 to whenever, to either when I retire or the company gets rid of me, or if I just drop the coverage. But I won't be penalized. Okay? My recommendation for people in that situation is to always take Medicare Part A, and you can do that enrolling online, and you can just elect not to take Part B during the application, because then Medicare Part A has no premium. That's the reason I say that. It's one less thing to do later, and it's quite a hassle to get on it later. So let's assume you did it that way. You took Medicare Part A at 65. You have that. Let's say you're 68 now and you're retiring, and you're coming off of your group plan, and you need to get on Medicare Part B. It's a little trickier. So there are a couple different ways you can do it, but my preferred method, like I've mentioned, the first way is to go into the Social Security office, but you're going to need documentation. There's a form that Social Security has available that needs to be filled out by your employer that shows you had credible group coverage since age 65. It's how they know not to penalize you. You need that form. So you can go to the Social Security office with that form, get a number, wait in line. Not ideal in my opinion. What I would do, and this is what I recommend people to do, is there's 2 forms that you need to send them. The first one is what's known as an application for Part B. It's just a 1-page paper application, and you fill it out, and that's it. It's just basic information. You sign it, say you want Part B, say when you want it to start, yada, yada, yada. Then you get that employer form we just talked about, which needs to be filled out from your employer, HR department, whatever, showing that you had credible coverage since age 65, so that Social Security knows not to penalize you. You get those 2 forms, and if you ever need them, you can find them. Just type in Medicare enrollment forms on Google, and you should be able to pull them up on a PDF. Get those 2 forms, and you can either mail them in to the closest Social Security office, or if you can call them and get a fax number, you can fax them in. Those are a couple different ways you can do that. And that's usually all that's required, although it's important if you haven't heard anything within a 2-week span to check in on it. Because like I said, if there's a problem, they will they don't always contact you even though they're supposed to. They just kind of wait for you to call. They just assume you're going to call, like you have nothing better to do. So that's that. Now let's say you just didn't take Medicare at all at age 65. You're not working, you're retired, you don't have any group cut plan, you just didn't take Medicare. It's a much trickier situation. So for people like that, there's only a certain time of the year that you can apply for Medicare, and you will have a penalty added onto your premium. So instead of the $135.50, you might spend $160 a month once you do get on. Where I ran into this situation last week. But let's say somebody does that. Let's say I'm 68. I haven't had any coverage since 65. I didn't take Medicare. They're going to penalize me. I can apply for Medicare from January to the end of March every year. That's the window. Now, when you apply, that's the time period you can apply. It doesn't mean you're going to get it right away. What happens is, when you apply during that time period, your Medicare does not start until July 1st. And that's year in and year out. The only way to get on Medicare outside of that window is if you're coming off of a group plan. You'd be looking at a life-changing event. So keep that in mind. If you're not working, not coming off an employer plan, you can essentially only do it during that one time of the year, January through the end of March. If you're coming off of a group plan, you can do it any time of the year. Simply put, right? Stay with me into segment 3, and we will wrap this puppy up. And there's some other thoughts that I have that I'd like to share with you. Stay tuned. Welcome back, folks, to segment 3, our third and final segment of today's Everything Medicare Podcast. I apologize if this podcast is shorter than they've been recently. Usually I try to get them up to anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes. This one's probably going to be less than 20 minutes just because with me on the road, I'm not in the best place to be able to do with something like this, and it makes it difficult. So I'm going to wrap it up pretty shortly today. Some final thoughts I wanted to share on applying for Medicare. My advice is when you're turning 65, always take Part A, like I said. It just saves you a whole world of trouble later. Let's say you didn't take Part A at 65, you have nothing. Well, you have to call them, and they have to ask you some questions and clearance over the phone or go in. You have to. There's no way around it. There's no form for Part A. And you can't do it online unless you're turning 65, no matter what they tell you. I've heard people from Social Security tell people that they can do that, and then they go on the website to do it, and they say they can't do it. The website is designed for people that are turning 65. It doesn't work for any other method. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. Even Social Security, some people at Social Security don't know that. So unorganized they are. So keep that in mind. Folks, I really appreciate you listening every week. I promise on Saturday we're going to have a big, long podcast for you. Appreciate your patience during this trying time in my life where, I got a baby coming any day. I have to be there for my wife to provide my ambulance services because I charge much less than the regular ambulance would. Folks, if you're listening to us on a platform that allows you to leave reviews, it really helps us out a lot to leave us a 5-star review so that way more people can find us. My mission is to make a subject that's been so confusing, so misinterpreted, so much false information out there. I'm trying to make it easy to understand, and I believe someone can't make a proper decision on what they want to do unless they're educated on the choices. Thank you so much for listening. Follow us on social media, Christian Brindle Insurance Services, where we always put out constant updates. Like I said, this coming Saturday, I'll be bringing a big, long podcast. If you have any requests on topics you'd like us to touch on, shoot me an email personally at Christian, Christian, B as in boy, Christian B at xmission.com. The letter X and the word mission, MISSION.com. Your request just might turn into an entire episode. Thank you, folks. Have a great week. Happy Monday. Can't wait to talk to you again on Saturday.